1. e4, Fischer starts with his usual move, seeking an open, tactical game. Against Petrosian, known for his incredible solidity, Fischer wants to pose problems from the very beginning. 1. c6, Petrosian, the master of defense and prophylaxis, responds with the Caro-Kann defense. This choice aims for a solid and reliable pawn structure, neutralizing White's early attacking attempts. 2. nc3, Fischer opts for the two knights attack, a line that seeks a faster and less theoretical game than the main variations involving an early d4. 2. d5, Petrosian's most solid reply. He establishes a strong foothold in the center and immediately challenges White's plans for control. 3. nf3, Fischer completes his knight development, maintaining flexibility and preparing for a complex fight for the center of the board. 3. bg4, a provocative move. Petrosian pins the f3 knight, looking to create weaknesses in White's kingside pawn structure and disrupt his coordination. 4. h3, Fischer immediately challenges the bishop. He is not afraid of the possibility of doubled pawns, calculating that the bishop pair and open files will be sufficient compensation. For bxf3, Petrosian accepts the challenge, trading his bishop for the knight. He cedes the bishop pair in exchange for creating a permanent structural weakness in Fischer's position. 5. qxf3, Fischer recaptures with the queen, which becomes an active piece in the center. The position is now strategically very complex and unbalanced. 5. nf6, Petrosian continues with his natural development, controlling the center and preparing to castle. His position is extremely solid and without weaknesses. 6. d3, Fischer secures his center and opens the diagonal for his light-squared bishop. He is preparing a kingside fianchetto to activate his pieces. 6. e6, a solid move that reinforces Petrosian's control over the center and prepares the development of his remaining pieces. The position remains very closed. 7. g3, Fischer begins his fianchetto plan. The bishop on g2 will be a crucial piece, controlling the long diagonal and adding pressure to Black's position. 7. bb4, Petrosian creates an annoying pin on the c3 knight, restricting White's mobility and looking to create further problems for Fischer to solve. 8. bd2, Fischer breaks the pin and completes his development. All of his minor pieces are now in play, and the position is ready for the next phase. 8. d4, a typical Petrosian move, closing the center. He seeks to suffocate Fischer's pieces and demonstrate that the White pawn structure is a long-term liability. 9. nb1, Fischer is forced to retreat the knight to an awkward square. This is a small victory for Petrosian, as the White pieces are slightly uncoordinated. 9. bxd2+, Petrosian decides to trade his active bishop for the knight, resolving the tension on the queenside and further simplifying the position in his favor. 10. nxd2, Fischer recaptures, and his knight is now on a better square, but the position remains very closed and difficult for White to create chances. 10. e5, another locking move from Petrosian. He completely blocks the center, making it very difficult for Fischer's bishop pair to find open lines. 11. bg2, the bishop is developed to g2, but its scope is currently limited by Petrosian's pawn chain. Fischer must now find a plan to open the position. 11. c5, Petrosian fixes the pawn structure on the queenside and prepares to expand in that sector of the board, a classic strategy in these closed positions. 12. Fischer castles his king to safety and prepares to challenge Black's control of the center with a pawn break on the f-file. 12. nc6, natural development. The knight is placed on a solid square from where it controls the center and prepares to support Black's plans. 13. qe2, Fischer repositions his queen, preparing the f4 pawn break. This is White's most active plan to try and create winning chances. 13. qe7, a multi-purpose queen move. It prepares for queenside castling, adds another defender to the e5 pawn, and connects the rooks. 14. f4, Fischer executes his plan, striking at the center. He hopes to open the f-file for his rook and create weaknesses in Black's position. 14. A surprise. Petrosian castles on the queenside, creating a very sharp position where both sides will attack the opposing king. 15. a3, Fischer secures his queenside and prepares to launch his own pawn storm with b4, attacking the black king. 15, Na8, a classic Petrosian maneuver. The knight is rerouted to a more defensive square, preparing to meet white's attack on the queenside. 16, b4, the attack begins. Fischer launches his queenside pawn storm, seeking to rip open the files in front of the black king. 16, cxb4, Petrosian accepts the pawn, opening the c-file for his rook and creating counterplay against white's position. The game is now very sharp. 17, nc4, Fischer's knight jumps to a powerful central outpost, putting pressure on black's position and supporting the attack. 17, f6, a solid defensive move, blunting the attack of white's bishop on g2 and reinforcing the defense of the kingside. 18, fx5, Fischer exchanges pawns, opening the f-file and hoping to create weaknesses around the black king. 18, fx5, Petrosian recaptures, and his position remains very solid. The open f-file can be used by both sides, and the position is still unclear. 19, xb4, Fischer recaptures the pawn, opening the a-file for his rook. The queenside is now a battlefield, with both sides creating threats. 19, nc7, the knight repositions, blockading the b-pawn and preparing to jump to a more active square. The position is incredibly complex. 20, na5, Fischer challenges black's knight, seeking to create more weaknesses in the pawn structure. The tactical complications are immense. 20, nb5, Petrosian's knight finds a powerful outpost on b5, from where it puts pressure on white's position and creates counterplay. 21, nxc6, Fischer exchanges knights, and the resulting pawn structure on the queenside is very weak for black, but also very dynamic. 21, bxc6, Petrosian recaptures, and his doubled c-pawns are a weakness, but they also control key squares and can be used as a shield. 22, rf2, a very strong move. Fischer brings his rook to a more active square, preparing to double on the f-file and create threats. 22, g6, a useful prophylactic move, preventing any backrank problems and preparing to challenge white's control of the kingside. 23, h4, Fischer creates a passed pawn on the h-file, a long-term strategic asset that will become a major factor in the endgame. 23, kb7, the king steps to a safer square, away from the open files and diagonals. Petrosian is carefully consolidating his position. 24, h5, the pawn advances, creating more problems for black to solve and tying down his pieces to the defense of the kingside. 24, qxb4, Petrosian grabs the b-pawn, creating a passed pawn of his own on the a-file. The game is now a race between passed pawns. 25, rf7+, the rook invades the 7th rank, creating new threats and putting immense pressure on black's position. The attack is very dangerous. 25, kb6, the king is forced to move, but it is still relatively safe. Petrosian is navigating the complications with great skill. 26, qf2, the queen moves to a more aggressive square, creating a battery with the rook and threatening checkmate. The pressure is unbearable. 26, a5, a crucial defensive move. Petrosian creates an escape square for his king and prepares to advance his own passed pawn. 27, c4, a desperate attempt to create a breakthrough, but it only creates more weaknesses in white's position. The tide is turning. 27, nc3, the knight lands on a monster square, blockading the c-pawn and creating a web of threats against white's position. 28, rf1, the rook repositions, but it is too late. Black's passed a-pawn is now the decisive factor in the game. 28, f4, the pawn marches forward, and there is nothing that white can do to stop it. The game is now completely winning for black. 29, qf6, a last-ditch effort, but it is a futile gesture. The game is over, and these are just the last gasps of a dying position. 29, qc5, the queen returns to defend, and the position is completely solid. There are no more threats for white to create. 30, rxh7, the rook captures a pawn, but it is a meaningless capture. The material balance is irrelevant, as the game will be decided by the passed a-pawn. 30, rdf8, a brilliant move. Petrosian forces the exchange of queens, knowing that the resulting endgame is trivially winning for him. 31. Qxg6, Fischer is forced to exchange queens, and the game is now over. The execution of the win is a matter of technique. 31. Rxh7, Petrosian recaptures, and his position is completely winning. The passed a-pawn is unstoppable, and the white pieces are helpless. 32. Qxh7, Fischer captures a pawn, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 32. Rxf1+, Petrosian forces the exchange of rooks, simplifying the position and clarifying his path to victory. The execution is flawless. 33. Bxf1, Fischer recaptures, but his position is completely lost. The passed a-pawn is unstoppable, and the white pieces are helpless. 33. A3, the pawn continues its unstoppable march. It is now only 2 squares away from queening, and there is nothing that white can do. 34. H6, Fischer's own passed pawn advances, but it is far too slow. The game will be over before this pawn has a chance to queen. 34. A2, the pawn reaches the second rank and is now unstoppable. It will queen on the next move, and the game will be over. 35. Qg8, a final, desperate move, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 35. A1 equals Q, promotion. Petrosian gets a new queen, and the game is now over. The execution of the win has been flawless. 36. H7, the pawn advances, but it is a futile gesture. The game will be over in a few moves, and this pawn will never have a chance to queen. 36. Qd6, the queen prepares to create a final mating net around the white king. Fischer is playing on only out of respect for his opponent. 37. H8 equals Q, Fischer gets a new queen, but it is too late. The game is completely lost, and this is simply the last gasp of a dying position. 37. Qa7, a quiet and deadly move. The queen prepares to support the other queen and to create a final mating net around the white king. 38. G4, the pawn advances, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps of a dying position. 38. Kc5, the king becomes an active piece, preparing to join the attack and deliver the final blow. The end is near. 39. Qf8, the queen tries to create some threats, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 39. K7, the queen prepares to create a final mating net around the white king. The coordination of black's queens is perfect. 40. Qa8, the queen tries to create some threats, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 40. Kb4, the king marches into the attack, preparing to deliver the final blow. The end is near, and the game is over. 41. Qh2, the queen tries to create some threats, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 41. Kb3, the king continues its majestic march into the heart of white's position. The king will deliver the final blow. 42. Qa1, the queen tries to create a blockade, but it is a hopeless task. The queen is the only active piece for white, but it cannot defend against the threats. 42. Qa3, the queen prepares to deliver the final blow. The end is near, and the game is over. The execution of the win has been flawless. 43. Xa3+, Fischer is forced to exchange queens to avoid immediate mate, but the resulting endgame is still completely lost for white. 43. Xa3, Petrosian recaptures, and he now has a winning endgame. The execution of the win is a matter of technique. 44. Qh6, the queen tries to create some threats, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 44. Qf7, the queen prepares to create a final mating net around the white king. The end is near, and the game is over. 45. Kg2, the king tries to flee, but there are no safe squares. The king is trapped in a deadly mating net, and the end is near. 45, kb3, the king continues its majestic march into the heart of white's position. The king will deliver the final blow. 46, qd2, the queen tries to create some threats, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 46, qh7, the queen prepares to create a final mating net around the white king. The end is near, and the game is over. 47, kg3, the king tries to flee, but there are no safe squares. The king is trapped in a deadly mating net, and the end is near. 47, c4, the queen captures a pawn, further devastating white's position and creating new threats. The end is near. 48, qf2, the queen tries to create some threats, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps. 48, qh1, the queen prepares to create a final mating net around the white king. The end is near, and the game is over. January 2nd to January 2nd.